Welcome to the official Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast. My name's Ian.
And my name's Nikki, bringing you the best in comics and graphic novels and updates from the festival.
Hello, welcome to the Lakes International Comic Art Festival podcast, episode 70. My name is Ian.
And I'm Nikki.
And it's a bit blustery and windy out there.
It's wet.
Dennis is on his way.
Dennis the Menace.
Dennis is on his way to destroy us all.
I can't see the window. Go on, open the curtain a bit so I can have a look out.
There you go, it's wet.
It's raining.
It's raining. It was almost flooded last week.
It was.
Almost,
but we're fine.
Some people weren't, though.
Some people were not
Cumbria.
fine.
So
yeah, and Yorkshire, but you don't care about them, do you?
I care about the people, just not the land.
Just not the land. You Lancastrian, you.
Right, so this episode, let's see what we're talking about. So, Mike, the main interview this week isn't by us
again,
because we,
for God's sake,
we couldn't get our interview in on time, so that's going to be next week.
Yeah.
So Mike is chatting to Ben Cullis about the new 77 comic, a new retro anthology, which is now available on Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Pete is chatting to Adam Falp about the process.
Are we allowing Pete to chat to anyone?
Come on. Choice. About the process of creating comics and his new Kickstarter, Atomic Hercules. And as if by magic, Tom is reviewing Atomic Hercules.
Wow, it's always like they planned it.
No, they didn't. Which is by Adam Falp and a certain Mr. Esmond as well.
Ah, not the Tony.
The Tony of Esmond.
The Tony of Esmond.
So that's all to come. We've got some books to look at. We've got some festival news.
Yes.
And we've got a couple of things to talk about first.
Ooh.
First, your thing.
What? Don't point to me. Now I don't know what I'm doing. Huh? What thing?
What you just met? Who we met this week?
Oh my God! I didn't know that was the thing. We just talked about it, but I thought you meant like an arty thing.
No.
Not a person thing.
Yes, a person.
We met Uber fan. I think we're going to call her now Uber fan, Chanel. We've seen her. What were we doing? You were having a sandwich.
I was having a sandwich.
Because we'd nipped out. Well, you'd nipped out work and I nipped to meet you.
You did.
She walked past us and I went, I think that is. and she'd obviously thought, I think that is. And then, yes, we said hello. And she's lovely. We've finally met. We've been meaning to meet forever, really. And she's lovely. I got a hug because I'm the star.
Many creators will know Chanel from Twitter.
Yes.
Because she gets involved with
she's
chatting
lovely.
away with the whole community, which is brilliant, which is what we love about the Twitter community.
Yes.
Everybody chats to everyone.
They do.
And it's great.
It is lovely. And she's lovely. And she's bought all of my stuff. So she's like really lovely. And I need to give her a badge.
So, hello to Chanel.
Hello, Chanel.
Right. So we've I've been having ideas again, haven't I?
Oh God, it's up the wall, Ian.
What's up the wall?
Black paint is up the wall. Look, it's here. I'm pointing at it. My finger is on the wall.
I've been painting.
You've been getting it everywhere. I mean, you're covered in it as well. How can you get poster paint that far?
I've not done anything with poster paint since I was like
7.
Yeah.
Did your mum just go, for God's sake, Ian, you're covered in it?
So I had an idea.
Yeah. I
had an idea for a future project, and I thought, well, why don't we visualise that idea now?
I love it when he has ideas, honest.
So we're gonna try our hands at a bit of stop motion animation.
Of course we are.
And we're gonna convert Your Comic Moon into stop motion animation.
Yes, it's gonna be so easy.
So I've been painting a set. Well, we've been painting a set.
I was going to say, I have painted a bit, and I'm wearing a light pink jumper, and I have no black splodges on me.
That's what I had to do the undercoat, and
of
that's
course.
obviously a lot more hard work.
You had to do the first layer
of
black poster paint.
So yeah, hopefully, if this works out, coming to you the next month or so, will be an animation.
Yes, got split pins turning up today.
Split pins. It's going to be
pins.
All based on cardboard. It'll look very homemade, which I think is the effect we sort of want it to look anyway.
It's going to look beautiful. I'm reckoning we're in for the Cannes Film Festival this year.
I don't think some of the last 5 minutes is possibly going to...
Short animation things, you know.
Yeah.
There's stuff out there we could win.
Do we need to hone our vocal talents for it as well?
It's silent. You know my comics are silent.
That is not silent, though. It's got words in it.
Moon has words in it. Oh.
You not already thought about that?
No, I hadn't thought. How are we doing the speech bubbles?
I think we need to speak them. I think we need to act.
Does this mean I have to animate mouth movement now?
No, we can possibly get away maybe having 0 mouths. I don't know. We'll have to work
0
on that.
mouths. Okay. That's fine.
We'll work on that bit. Anyway.
Jesus, I am not realising his dream quite yet.
Coming soon.
I'm realising I have a lot of work to do for you to realise your dream.
This is all for you.
For me. I didn't have this thought. This thought never entered my head.
No, it's me that creates your
right.
world.
I'm just like, what am I?
Without the manager, you are nothing.
Someone's sleeping on the sofa tonight.
Can we talk about what we posted this week for you as well? Can we start discussing that?
Yes.
And whatever stage you get to, at least then we can talk about.
I've got
how
to
it
the
feels.
posting stage, and I'm very pleased of myself just to get to the you posted it stage.
So this is for the Myriad First Graphic Novel Competition, which entries close on the 28th of this month.
Oh yes, if you're doing it, quick.
Requirements are at least 15 between 15 and 30 pages,
Yeah,
black
you
and
got 15.
white, and a synopsis of a graphic novel that you're planning, creating, so on and so forth.
Yes, I made people cry.
So quite a few people to thank. So Pete and Mike.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'm trying to think who else we had help from. I'll find out. But tell us what sort of process initially that you went through. What was your process and thinking behind it?
There was no... Oh, right. There was lots of thinking behind this. We kind of decided that we'd do this anyway, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing. A little autobiography. Scrapbook of memories, I think, is a good idea. That's what Aileen said, and Aileen said some nice things. So
it was Aileen.
She was very, very lovely.
And Richard Chief as well.
Yes, they were so nice. They're so helpful. Anyway, so it's a scrapbook of memories of my life up to the age of about 19. Mm-hmm. No. So, I grew up in a zoo. I grew up in a little village. And it's just how, the day-to-day stuff that happened to me. Unfortunately, I was bullied very badly for quite a number of years, really. So that's the bit that made people cry in the synopsis.
So the synopsis was what actually, seemed to upset people, wasn't it?
Yeah, I didn't mean to upset people because on the whole, it's quite a funny book. Mm-hmm. It's in my style, so it's obviously slightly whimsical. Slightly whimsical. But that's great. That's just me. And it's a collection of funny stuff, some information about animals, how to tell your British trees from the leaves, how to identify some marks in the snow if you go for a walk. It's all going to have that kind of thing, and the history of Whipsnade Zoo in there, because that's obviously the zoo I grew up in. Yeah. And my family all worked there, including myself. I was an Easter bunny. Couldn't see a thing with the hat on.
Don't ruin the story.
Oh my God. I'll tell you one thing though, we had to give out like little Easter eggs to people, and if they were like, only if they caught up with the bunny with a plastic Easter egg. If they did that, then I gave them an Easter egg. But some of them, because they came in two halves, they were like little, not Galaxy, don't think they were around then, but they used to fall into two halves. And if one had fallen into a half, me and the person that had to guide me, because I couldn't see the floor, would poke it through my eye hole. It'd fall into a little ledge by my mouth, and I could eat it. I think we probably ate our own weight in chocolate eggs as much as we gave them out.
Jeez.
That was back when we could do that.
So, the hardest part has been writing a synopsis, I think.
Yes.
How did you find?
Hard.
And any advice for people who are going through a similar? Because obviously you're going to have to write a synopsis if you're applying for any.
Yes, it's not a proper synopsis though, is it? Because it's only a page.
It's only a page.
So you got to fit in. Basically, you just give a more detailed overview of your book. But you also want to kind of hook and catch them in. Mm-hmm. So you give enough information, but not too much. There you go.
But you got to show.
You got to show the start, the middle, and the
there,
end. Yeah. So they can see that there's a full progressiveness of the narrative. Listen to that! 2 long words.
You made that up.
I did. Shush. Through to to the ending.
Okay.
Yes, of which I'm not that sure on the ending. So that's fine.
So how are you feeling now it's been posted?
I hadn't given it another thought, to be fair.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going to get anywhere, and that's fine.
Well, you see, no, that's the thing. You don't know. You can't. I mean,
I always put myself down.
I suppose it's a good way to think that should it not go anywhere, then you're not going to be as upset as if you were like, oh yeah, I'm going to win.
Oh yeah, I never think I'm going to win. Nothing.
You should have some confidence in it. I think your feedback you've had from a few people?
I was really impressed, but I thought it's just because they're being nice to me. It's like, she'll probably cry.
No, Aileen is the type of person who'll be honest.
She scares me. She's lovely. She scares me.
Yeah, but she knows her stuff.
She does know her stuff.
And if there was improvements to be made, she'd have said.
Yeah.
And she'd
Yeah. Yeah. And also it's...
And Pete and Mike as well, they'll tell you.
They will. I can slap them though.
Yeah, but they'll still tell you.
I would not. But yeah, I don't want to be like everyone else, because a lot of them are going to be really, really dark. Mm-hmm. But I've got a lot of laughs in mine, and I think that's makes me a bit different.
You've got to create a story that's entertaining.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Yeah, and I also want to create empathy with the person for me, mm-hmm. and I want them to relate to parts. I mean, there's going to be... Not many people are going to relate to the fact that they grew up in a zoo. But there's going to be parts of it, like trying to build a snowman every year, and it just turned out into something hideous. People are going to look at that and go, yeah, we tried that.
You know what it reminds me of, actually, now I'm thinking about it?
Oh, am I going to have to kick you? Oh. Please don't make me kick you.
But it is a typical British story. We've taken a mick out of a film that was advertised last night, which is just like The Calendar Girls, which is just like the full Monty, which is just like...
Oh, no,
happy, positive. Oh, it all goes wrong.
Happy. Oh, my God, it's a typical British comedy movie. Oh, my God. Yeah, that's me.
That's you.
And if I do as half as well as the full Monty or Calendar Girls, then I'm quite happy. Yeah, well, you've got to go for the underdog, haven't you?
So long lists will be announced end of March, then short list end of April, and then I think May onwards.
I'll be impressed if I got on the long list. I'd be quite happy.
We'll talk about how you feel at each stage, at whatever stage
you get to. My name doesn't turn up. How do you feel, Nikki?
No,
devastated.
Well, that's fine. We'll discuss that. We need to understand that.
I'm just going to have to do it in my own time. It's going to take forever.
So we understand, and it'll be beneficial for other people, I feel.
Yes.
Who might go through with any publisher.
They'll probably go fine, though, aren't they? They're going to be like, well, I got shortlisted. I want it. And they'll be like, Nikki, how far did you get? Well, I posted it. That's going to be so beneficial for so many people.
I think you'll go further, but anyway.
I don't, but
we'll see.
That's fine.
We'll see.
I don't care. Like I said, I was impressed I posted it.
Okay.
It was quite a lot of courage to do it.
Well, good luck, my dear.
Oh, thank you so much.
Right, let's talk about some comics. Should we talk about the festival one first? So we're actually going to talk about a couple of free comics this week. The first one is... let me just bring it up.
Can you find it?
Jean-Baptiste Paulien, a.k.a. Jibe.
Oh, yes.
Jibe.
Sorry, do you want to say that for another 3 times?
Festival Journey. So it recounts his experience of visiting a festival with other European guests, and it's quite clear that, like attendees, this talented comic creator enjoyed his time in the festival Lake District this year. Stop laughing at me, I'm reading.
Sorry, is that what it's called?
Do you want to give us a quick rundown on your thoughts of you've read it?
I have read it, yes. It's brilliant. It's a fun, it's 22 pages. Mm-hmm. It shows Kendal and the festival as it is. Yeah. It's such a fun little thing. And I didn't realise that place had I'm going to say the world's longest window. Who knew?
I certainly didn't.
I'm pretty certain he thinks they're taking the mick as well. So yeah, it's really little interesting little comic. I really enjoyed it. And it shows off the festival and obviously how friendly the town is, which it is, and it's lovely. It calls us beautiful, and we are.
We are.
We are. I am. I've been adopted now. I've been adopted by Kendal. It's fine.
I like his use of colours. It's almost black and white with a individual colour per page as well. So like you got black and white, then green, then it goes black and white and yellow.
Yes.
And it sort of really stands out.
I just like the fact you say it's like black and white with colour.
As in there's only one colour other than black and white.
But it was funny.
Essentially, the colour seems to flick per day. So it's different days going, it's a different colour. It sort of splits it up and shows it off in that sort of way. And it does cover the whole weekend, essentially, of their impression and view.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, really good. Really good. And it's free.
Yes.
So go to comicartfestival.com.
And also, if you wanted just to think, I don't know if I want to go to the Comic Art Festival, then have a little flick through it, because it does show off exactly what we do. I'm like, we do. Yeah.
We do. All the work that we do.
All the work that everyone who does all the work does.
Yes. Just a point about that. Hopefully there's a Travelodge going to be open this year.
Yes, so hopefully, fingers crossed. Oh, it'd be nice. And it's not too far to come in. It's just slightly out of town, isn't it? But
it's 20 minutes walk.
Yeah, and as long as the river doesn't flood, you'll be fine. The car park floods, doesn't it? Yeah.
Hopefully
all right, it'll be fine.
Anyway.
I'll stick an extra drain in, it'll be fine.
So go and check that out. As I say, we'll have a link at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about one now, which isn't free.
Okay.
This was sent to me randomly, which I wasn't expecting. Dr. Murder, Emil Friis Ernst and Backyard Barons present The Island of Death.
Island of Death.
They advertise themselves as a psychedelic comic, which is accurate in many ways.
I was going to say, even from the front cover of that and the spine.
Cover, the spine, the outside is pink. It's odd. And you look at the art, it is an odd style, but it really works when you start reading the story. So I'll give you a quick bit of bump.
I was just moving the cat.
Dr. Murder is having one awful day. First his arch nemesis leaves him, then his henchman, and then his sanity. Also, what is a quinoa?
Quinoa?
Yeah, that.
Why don't you find out, Ian?
Have you finished?
No. Yes, I finished.
So this is a little bit like The Incredibles, but from the side of the baddie. So, when it all sort of, you've been powerful and it just doesn't quite work out for you.
Yeah.
So, he tries at school, it all goes wrong. And 20 years later, he's trying to be this baddie, and then he's just losing, like he said, loses his arch nemesis because he's just not good enough. His henchmen aren't interested. He's just not being the bad guy like it should be. And it's an odd story about him sort of dealing with that and trying to become the person he wants to be. Yeah. It is, the art is odd, but it fits with the whole story. And it just jumps along in a pace I really enjoyed. So it's one that I've surprised to get it, but I really enjoyed what I've read. And I'd say go and grab it, go and check it out. Dr. Murder and the Island of Death. Only available on their website, I think, so I'll put a link at the end.
Yes, do that so they can get it.
And your other free one?
Oh, hang on, I need to...
Oh, you could have been ready.
Well, I was too busy laughing at you and Quinoa. I can't say it now myself.
You're fired.
I'm not fired. So, it's on Twitter at the moment. Lovely Joe Latham, the loveliest person in the world. It's called A Seed Named Hope, and I have got a blurb.
Blurb it.
I will blurb it. Do you like cats? Holy crap, I love cats too. That's so cool. We have so much in common. Every time I've lived in a place with no cats, I've taken it upon myself to go on cat walks around the neighbourhood to find where the best routes to go and meet local cats. Yeah, I'm that guy. Rach sometimes calls me the cat whisperer because cats don't seem to mind me. I think it's more to do with my slow-moving presence. We shall be friends. The following comic is a short story about dealing with a terrible sadness, trying to come to terms with the loss of hope. It comes from a very tough time I had. I don't intend on ever printing this one. If I do, it'll make me very nervous. Anyway, I hope someone somewhere finds this helpful. And it's just beautiful. I mean, Joe's art is gorgeous anyway, isn't it? And the story about these two little cats, and one goes away and finds a seed, they come back and they plant it and they look after it, and it starts to grow and then it dies, and they're just lost without the seed. And it obviously, from carrying on reading it, the sadness that had happened to Joe. And I mean, it finally has a lovely ending. I don't want to spoil the ending, but the hope is there, and it is coming to terms. It doesn't have to be the loss that they had. It could be any loss. You can emphasize with anything that you've lost, that you think you've wanted this so badly and it just doesn't happen. And where do you go as a family from there? And so just that is I found it very moving. I read it at work in my break, and then I can't read, so that's nice. Then I have to go back out and clean things.
Thanks, Joe.
But no, like I say, it's a beautiful, beautiful little story, and I think everyone should read it, because you will find something there which resonates with yourselves.
Yeah. I think I know obviously he doesn't want to print it for personal reasons, but do you feel it's worth being
God,
printed?
Yeah, it's beautiful that it's there, that you can find it. I mean, it's, like I say, it's on his Twitter. Anyway.
Well, we'll put a link.
Yeah, put a link
to it as well at the
him.
bottom.
And I know he's going through a tough time at the moment, and our thoughts are with him, aren't they, at the moment? But yes, it's beautiful. I love all his work, and he's such a lovely person. He doesn't
We've said
deserve
this multiple times.
Oh, but he really is, isn't he? He's so lovely. He's very supportive. He's always there. If I've ever put I'm having a bad day on Twitter, he is there in an instant. And my cat is showing love here as well by rubbing herself up against the microphone. So yeah, it's a beautiful little story, and like I say, it's completely free on Twitter at the moment. So
go check it out.
Yeah, have a look at him and then follow him because he's so nice.
Okay, well, thank you very much, and we'll take a break here and sort this cat out.
She's getting herself really tangled now. Come on.
We'll let the rest of the team take over, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about the festival a little bit.
Yeah.
Mike's Mutterings.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Mike's Mutterings. Something a bit different this week. I've been lucky enough to get hold of Ben Cullis, aka Banksy, in for an interview to talk about the 77 comic Kickstarter. So, hi Ben.
Good afternoon, Mike. How are you?
Welcome to the podcast. Very well, thanks. So, I guess the first thing is, what's your role in the 77 and what and who is this mysterious The 77 organisation?
Very good. So the 77 first came to existence in a conversation which we can actually pin down on a date in a thread in a group that I run on Facebook, 1977-2000 AD. An artist by the name of Ed Doyle posed a question, hey, considering everybody who's on this group, why don't we start a comic? And I think that was about, the end of July last year. I went away on holiday for a couple of weeks, and while I was away, giving myself a little bit distance from work and trying to think about perhaps what I'd be doing over the next year or so, decided that I was going to go for it and set up a group on Facebook. So it started off not as a group, but as a page. So I had something I could start building a community with, and started putting out a few mystic kind of posts with some imagery. I mean, designed something, the 77 logo. Thanks got to go to Steve Green for that, a designer who's pretty well known in the industry, very, very talented chap. He'll be working with Mike McMahon and Sam Reed and Steve Stelankier on the, I think what's it called? Joe's Robot Killer Dad, I believe, which is going to come out this year. So yeah, it started as a natural thing in a conversation. Because I work in a group, the 1977 group, the 2000 AD sort of fan group, it really is a collective of people. So I fed back to them, got their information, got their ideas, should I say, their opinions. And it was all pretty much at the beginning of, well, off you go and do it. Don't worry about it. We'll look after this, and off you go. So I kind of put my head down for a few weeks and started putting, word out to a few people who I knew. So it started like that. And obviously here we are. Well, we're almost 6 months later. And yeah, here we are at midway in a Kickstarter, and things have moved on substantially. So that's the very beginning of it.
That's a really quick origin story just to get to where you are now.
Sure. But that's because I have had some free time over the last year or two. Not going to discuss necessarily what I do for a living, but I didn't do something for a living for a while. I was made redundant from a job, and I've had quite a lot of free time. And I'm not someone who kind of settles really easily with not doing a lot. So, I was really primed in terms of having some time and wanting to do something creative. I've really directed quite a lot of my own free time at this. And at the moment, Mike, I'm working part-time, 3 days a week through choice. I have my own little business as well. But it basically means today we're speaking, and for our listeners wouldn't know, but it's a Friday. I always get Thursdays and Fridays off. And so basically, here I am amongst piles of paperwork, emails, and I'm kind of putting a good 20, 30 hours in a week. So in some respects, and that role is as an editor and as a kind of commissioning editor and publisher as well. So I'm learning really quickly and speaking to some really good people and making lots of contacts. And yeah, I'm not doing it, burning the candle at the wrong end to sort of fit it in with a full-time job. So yeah, thanks, and I appreciate that. I mean,
it just feels, even if you have that spare time to devote to something, I think it takes a bit of drive to get to the point where, well, I guess, tell us about the Kickstarter. I mean, is it about the midpoint now? Or it will be when this podcast goes out, I think.
Okay, well, I understand that the podcast is going out in mid-February, I think the 15th or something like that.
Yeah.
So, hey, guys, if you're listening and you've maybe seen our stuff on Facebook through The77, which is a page, or on Twitter at 77 Comics, basically... yeah, a little bit. And if you don't, check those out. Or otherwise, go on to Kickstarter. We are one of the most popular Kickstarters at the moment, so you can look under popular section. We're an anthology comic, so you can find us under anthologies. Or just put in 77 and you will find us. Big logo first, and then a few sort of scroll down parts of our offer. And yeah, it runs to, this is the important thing, it runs to midnight, ending the 1st of Feb, beginning 2nd of March, 1st of Feb, 2nd of March. And we set what we thought was a fairly realistic, but yet kind of, meaningful target. So we could, go ahead with a print run, etc. We hit that within, I think it was 100 hours. And we're building on that with some stretch rewards and just basically refining what we're trying to offer the people who are looking to buy it. So that's going to be through Kickstarter. And we've got plans to take it beyond there. So I've been speaking with a wonderful gentleman by the name of Adrian Clark, who with his colleagues runs a distribution company called Get My Comics. They've recently taken over the distribution and I think some parts of marketing for Gosh Comics and Orbital and some other comic shops in the UK, but also more well known that they are involved with Comic Scene. So Tony Foster's Comic Scene, which is available pretty much in most towns through Menzies and other places like WH Smith's, McCall, I think, and Martin's.
Yeah, it's got great distribution there.
Oh, I'm plugging him because I tip my cap to Tony. He works extremely hard. He's actually got a job, so I don't know how he fits it all in. But as a commissioning editor and as a publisher, I'm really impressed with what he's done. I didn't necessarily know his earlier work. I really picked up this year, last year or so, on Comic Scene and a couple of the large annuals that he did. I'll come back to that later because obviously I was looking through that and thinking and eyeing up some talent that I would like to contact through that kind of level of publication. But yeah, we're going to be working with Adrian, and we've done various things with Comic Scene up until. So we were looking and keeping Tony and Adrian informed of our Kickstarter intention, but we basically worked on a zine which was put out with Comic Scene. If anyone knows this one, it was a small A5 wrap, double-sided wrap zine, which had it was done by Ed Doyle again, someone I mentioned earlier. It was the classic issue 500 2000 AD, which has a kind of tabled cover with 9 images on the front and 9 images on the back, 3x3, of all the characters at the time. So Halo Jones by Gibson, there was Slain by Fabry. You've got a Bolland there. You've got you've got Bilardinelli. You've got all the fantastic kind of classic 2000 AD artists would have been working about 1986. Anyway, we kind of put basically the contents of that together with a gentleman called Alan Holloway, who's a writer, and pretty much our content there. And one of the feature, I think, of the 24 pages was us. And we've spent a couple of years now going up and down and getting to conventions and meeting and talking to. Pretty much we started off, as I said, 1977, 2000 AD as a bit of a fan page. So we've met and talked to, for example, the heroes of our early reading experience, mostly 2000 AD based, and we've interviewed Pat Mills, Steve McManus, John Wagner, John Higgins, Henry Flint, and Ian Gibson, and a couple of others which are in the pipeline at the moment. And we kind of just put stuff out, and I was practicing the writing and, putting together pages for things and contributing to other magazines. And, it kind of just has all come together that I just thought, I want to do this. I don't know about you, Mike, how you got into maybe podcasting, whether you've been involved in publications yourself, but I can go right back to when I was, 12, 13 years old. Yeah, I'm sure I was a cartoonist, but I also edited the school newspaper, a bit of a nerd, 40 years ago now. And kind of, the old Letraset days, the old Lectone, cow gum, pasting up, and honestly, I kind of have dallied with this all my life. I've contributed to some quite well-known fanzines, quite niche ones though. I'd like to mention a couple of them now because I want to tip my hat to those people. So if Bear Hackenbush is listening, Bear, how you doing, pal? He was the editor of a pretty infamous fanzine back in the 80s called Skate Muties from the Fifth Dimension. Now, unless you're a skateboarder or a hardcore punk, you may have never heard of it, but check it out. It's out there. You can still buy T-shirts. His brother Bino and himself are still involved in producing sort of fantastic material for that. A couple of the things there, what was it? Pedestrians must die. Those kind of sayings. A bit kind of in its cut and paste nature. I created a character called Skate Worm, which is a mutated tequila worm that kind of enlarges because some crazy scientists dose it with gamma radiation or something. He's drinking tequila and the worm comes out of his glass. Anyway, so that was probably around about, I don't know, late 80s, mid to late 80s. Then I went to film school and I worked in animation for a few years. And then I did another career, which I've been doing for about 25 years. It was somewhat different, but involved in design and involved very much still in kind of working in graphics and stuff. And yeah, here I am, not frustrated in any way, kind of enjoying middle age, kind of feeling comfortable in myself and wanted to...
I was going to say, we had a chat earlier, didn't we? And we're about the same age.
Yeah, yeah.
And it made me laugh, actually, because you mentioned the logo before as well, which is instantly grabbable, I think.
Yeah.
It just grabs you immediately if you are a 2000 AD fan from the 70s and 80s. And I just love the fact that your mantra is that this is a love letter to the comics that made us.
Yeah.
And I think there is a certain something for a certain age group with this. It's universal, but I think you're trying to capture what's great then and bring it today.
Okay, I'm going to break down what you've said there, and let's have a two-way conversation, because I realise that I've kind of taken over at this point. I'm very interested that you spot that. Now, we're kind of thinking of changing the colour scheme every issue, like a particular comic may have done in terms of its logo.
Right, okay.
It started red and orange, and then maybe it went, I don't know, blue and orange, or blue and yellow, or purple and green, but as I said, Steve Green, funny enough, he designed it for us. He knew where we were coming from, but we are a creators owned IP organization. We're a collective. We do not publish other people's IP. Okay, so intellectual property is very important to us. We do not want to be seen either misusing anybody else's or in any way kind of, piggybacking is okay, basing
homage is absolutely fine.
Homage is absolutely fine. But, still Andy Warhol or Lichtenstein could have mentioned, the comic creators at the time when they nicked all their ideas, etc. So if we do it, I think people will understand that it's an innocent thing insofar as we say, it's about the comics that we loved as kids. Yes. And, hence we've got a tremendous range of people involved who, let's be honest with you, some of them are those creators back in the day. We're very happy to work with potentially, heroes from our past who are available, who want to get involved. And also, we're using people who now, hopefully, if you've got young kids yourself, maybe they're creating comics that your kids are reading right now.
It's a great spread, actually, of talent you've got, writers and artists, actually.
Sure, thank you. Yeah.
I mean, like you said, there are some big names from the period, and I guess we can't escape mentioning Ian Gibson.
Sure. So we've got Ian
Fabry a bit later as well.
Yeah. So Ian Gibson will be gracing certainly issue 1 and moving on to issue 2. There's amongst his aficionados and fans, it's well known, obviously, that Ian Gibson is very, very famous for Ballad of Halo Jones, and amongst a great body of work which his fans really appreciate. But there is an unpublished masterpiece, and we're certainly thrilled that we've got some work from that, and what we can print, we will print. Ian's in communication with us and has very generously joined the 77, which we see as I say, as a collective. So he's going to be on the back cover. We've got 2 artists who I think kind of in themselves, if you were to buy both copies, we're having a standard copy and that old fan favourite with regards to a Kickstarter, the variant copy. I must admit, I don't generally buy variant copies. I buy one or the other, of them. And we've got Glenn Fabry, who's creating a cover for the variant, and a brand new smack bang up to date artist you might not have heard of, but he is going places. And I'm not just saying that because I think it. If Pat Mills says it, right, it's happening.
Yes.
So Aid Hughes is his name. He, in some respects, is related to the 77 because his cousin, Steve Bull, is basically one of the team here, and it's his cousin. And they've been obviously known each other for a very, very long time. And Aid is a bit like we reflect on some other artists who move from one area to another. So the story of Dan Cornwell, for example, as a bus driver. We've got our postman. Okay, so Aid is a postman, and when he puts down his heavy sack, at the end of the day, for example, we in October, we were absolutely amazed at his determination to basically not improve his artwork. That's not what he was doing for. I think he was doing Inktober during October, which is, of course, is a worldwide celebration of artists who determined that they will produce a piece of work every day during the month of October. And the standard of that work that he was putting out to us and sharing with us and was going on the net, which I just had to know more about him. I mean, just astonishing.
Well, you just released the cover. If you follow the Kickstarter, you would have had an update.
Where are you in terms of critiquing his style, where it comes from? So it's kind of... it's kind of like Vallejo or your kind of, your 70s. Who's the most famous guy?
Frazetta.
Frazetta.
There's a little bit of Bisley in there.
Bit of Bisley chucked in, a bit of Fabry. I mean, basically what we're looking at is a colorist, but he also works in black and white. He has a very generous kind of, he's got a very generous eye in terms of how he creates character, but also he can produce a really scratchy kind of look as well. He's basically genuine, and I would say he's an all-rounder. He could produce black and white, tonal work, quite inky, scratchy work quite quickly, I'd imagine. But then he's produced this cover for us, which is going to be the standard cover. And so Aid Hughes, that's our guy. So Aid and Glenn are involved with that. And as I said, for me, that's kind of like either end of the spectrum in terms of perhaps, someone who started work. I mean, Glenn started work in 1985. I followed his career through Slain. And then, of course, the amazing series of covers he's done through, for example, Vertigo books, through, Preacher. And then I think he went on and did other very, very, very well-known work as well. And like I say, I mean, just to have someone like that on board is a big draw for people. And of course, we were able to use that to encourage perhaps people to take us just that little bit more seriously. In that, apart from a couple of thousand of our followers or members of groups on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, who are we? It's you've got to have kudos, and you've got to have a little bit of chutzpah to kind of get people on board. But as you said earlier,
I think it's again. Sorry, go on.
Zeitgeist. That's fine. The zeitgeist is very much this notion of. The fact is that let's be honest. The 60s, 70s, 80s, and whichever era, I guess, but that era for a lot of people was just so important to them as they were growing up, and has been recognized as a real golden era of British comics, where sales were high, action, down to kind of Whizzer and Chips, the Beano and Dandy, obviously, but then you had Valiant, Scorcher, Shoot. I mean, all the Tiger and all those kind of comics, and girls, the girls comics, the girl literature. So, Ginty, Bunty, and so on and so on. I think that basically we thought an anthology would do it justice, because we kind of wanted to give people just an opportunity to have just a good time sitting down with a comic. It's probably going to end up being twice the thickness of a standard comic. So we are looking at potentially 64 pages of comic artwork and stories. So we may end up with probably 72 pages. Although, wouldn't it be funny if somehow I could organise with a spare sheet inside 77 pages? That's I'm all for numerisms, kind of numberologists and things. There is hidden meaning behind 77, but yeah, I think the secret of what it is it's about our memories, our connection to things from the past, and it's anyone's era. So someone who's 30 years old can pick it up and go, I kind of got a reference to that. And someone who's 60, which I'm not far off these days, I'm 52 now, can go back and say, yeah, absolutely. It kind of, it's got a broad range, and we're also saying, look, we're going to open it up to new people as well. So yeah, it's an anthology in the true sense.
I think it's a good statement you made actually with the age use cover, because again, anyone of that era, they recognise all the names, all of which are still famous now, and then you've got these new names. I think by putting out the age use covers, you kind of said, yeah, the rest. This is the level of the new that we're getting. I just thought that was absolutely super.
I mean, if you don't mind, if it's okay, I'd like to name check some of these guys, because they are, without them, this is going nowhere. So I'm going to we'll do it in a couple of sections, but I'd like to run through some of them. So we'll introduce to a new audience a gentleman by the name of Neil Blackbird Sims, who in his own right is an incredibly well-known tattooist. Okay, if you want some ink on you, he does amazing tattoos. He also works 3D, so he does a lot of model making, and he's got this incredible style. We've got a couple of characters who I think are going to have legs here and elsewhere. Temporal Anarchy, basically, it's about the dark myths set in 1977, and introduces a character called Filthy Luca, who's a disgusting aged punk who's probably from that era. He's 40 odd years on from there. It kind of could be me, it could be someone else, but that's a very humorous and dark strip. Basically, we've then got Aid Hughes working with Steve Bull on something with the cover character is based on a story. It reads as the letter V, but we're actually going with 5, the Roman numeral. Okay, it's going to be kind of Black Hawk, you remember the Nubian warrior originally in 2000 AD? We got a bit of a fighting thing going on here. It's kind of gladiator versus, anything that can get chucked at it. I mean, these are one-offs. Some of these are one-offs, but that's a nice story there. Then we got The Only One, a fantastic kind of ghost story where Psycho meets They Live. And that's been scripted by Dave Healy, and incredible artwork by Karen Holloway. Okay, and Karen's obviously been published and had covers done for 2000 AD. It's Dave who works as part of the 77 team and is my co-admin on the 2000 AD page on Facebook. But it's one of he's returning to writing after a little bit of a hiatus, and so fantastic to see him writing again.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Section here, I'll just chat about our last piece, and it kind of shows really where. What we're trying to do is also make sure that we get people who have been published elsewhere, but maybe a couple of strips have not found a home. So very much thanks to Baden James Maloney, who is at the moment involved in publishing Edge of Extinction, which is a fantastic zombie series. And he's just kickstarting something called The Rejected, which is a collection of scripts and stories, which for one reason or another, it wasn't that they weren't good enough, but I don't know, through publications folding or there being some issues around, contractual issues, were not necessarily printed in 2000 AD, and lots of other well-known strips and comics. So it's got one called Angel, which has been the artwork is by Steve Austin, who's a breakout artist now, working with 2000 AD, the Meg, and such like. I'm going to go on in a minute to the rest, so we'll come back to that, because otherwise it'll end up with just being a long list, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Okay. No, there's a couple of ones I was really looking forward to.
Kickstarter, if that's okay, Mike. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we've got is we've got a whole load of rewards, basic sort of stuff like T-shirts, artwork. We've got a big one, which no one's yet taken us up on, and it would be fabulous. We're going to be at Lawless, which is our official launch. We've got a couple of micro launches as well for artists involved who are going to be exhibiting or trading just around about the same time. So we're looking at early to mid-May. Lawless is the kind of, I reckon, is pretty much the Judge Dredd 2000 AD and now British comic convention to go to in Bristol. It's quite incredible. It's great fun. It's overnight. It's an overnighter in terms that most people stay at the hotel, which is showing it or holding it, and it's very social. And we've got our official launch there, and there's going to be several of the artists who are exhibiting there as well. Okay, so we've got John Charles, who's involved in something called Techno Freak, which is just fantastic. He's going to be there. And who else have we got there? We've got, I said, Steve Austin is going to be there. And we've got basically Ed Doyle's going to be there, who's involved in. It's an opportunity that people can kind of, I don't know, pick up a comic of ours, go around and get it signed, meet people. And that's great. And the other things we're doing is going to be Portsmouth. I think Phil Elliott. Phil Elliott's been, producing comics now for 30, 40 years. I'm a big fan of Phil Elliott back in the day, from Gimli, Tales of Gimli, Second City, Glenn Dakin. He's worked with Eddie Campbell. He's been a stalwart, really, of the British industry. He's going to be at Portsmouth, I think on the weekend before or 2 weekends before. And then we've got our chap Morgan Spiceman, who's going to be over Enniskillen. And that's, I think that's the 2nd of May. And he'll have copies of the 77. So we're kind of breaking out and doing a couple of different things. Anyway, so what I'm saying is that the Kickstarter will have lots of things which are going to be available elsewhere. And, I just want people to understand that what we're trying to do here is we're trying to fund pretty much a breakout kind of comic. We're not looking to have fanzine proportions or print run. We're trying to set ourselves a very ambitious task of selling what will basically be a couple of thousand, 3,000-4,000 issues of something. And I don't know how it's going to go down, but what people have seen, they've liked. So
absolutely, the Kickstarter seems to be going very well for you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has gone very well. Kickstarters, if people aren't aware of them, basically you have to put together a proposition. It has to be scrutinized by Kickstarter organization, and it has to be a genuine thing, and what happens is, I've seen where Kickstarters have appeared where people have not necessarily had a product yet. We're almost completely the opposite. So if anyone's thinking about this, well, we're about 85% in already. That is, we've got a handful of pages from 70 to get finalized before it goes off to our art editor and our letterers and such like. So we're kind of that close, really. And it's not going to be coming out in months and months' time. It's where are we now? It's February, so it's coming out. It's starting to get quite scary. It's coming out in 3 months, so 2 months.
That's quite an early date. Which, of course, being 85% done is a great start when you're actually beginning a Kickstarter, because you've got things to show people and obviously gets you, a lot more attention quicker. But it's a very early delivery. It's June, isn't it? 2020.
Yeah, we're going to be exactly. We've said June. I mean, Kickstarter organisation says to you, be conservative. We may well have it out earlier. I mean, there's a PDF available, and we're very pleased actually. We've gone worldwide, so not everybody who's buying comics can afford to have a print sent to them. A copy sent to them. If you're in Australia, the copy to send it for post, it's ridiculous how expensive it is.
It's probably three, 4 times the actual cost of the print, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've had a good take up on that, and obviously we want to give people opportunities with artwork, T-shirts, as I said as well. And people have been really generous. And we're also doing the thing where you contact an artist and they'll do a single character sketch for you. So that doesn't necessarily need to be to do with one of the characters in the comic. You know, some of these guys are well known for working on different strips, and they've said that's fine. You know, for a donation to the Kickstarter, they'll produce a bespoke piece of artwork for somebody who wants it, and then those have been popular as well. So you know, we're really thankful that the creators who've got involved and those who are coming up next in issue 2 and 3 are getting involved in the Kickstarter now. So you know, that's the future, which you know I'll talk about as well. But yeah, that issue around the talent, I've just found people to be so generous, kind, constructive. You know, there's been a few people who said, well, you know, let me see what happens first, get issue 1 off the ground. And I think that's only fair enough. You know, you don't want to come across as a time waster or a fantasist, you know, and hopefully we've got our feet very much based, you know, firmly on terra firma. I mean, for example, I'm going to just say having Steve McManus involved, you know, Tharg. For me, it's just, it blows my mind. It's a time twister, you know, it's a future shock. It's nuts. If you talk to the 10-year-old me about potentially what was happening now, I would be just, you know, astounded. And there we are. And he's involved in it. He's written a couple of scripts for us, and they're going to be coming in issue 1 and 2. And he's happy to get involved in promotion. So if you want to meet Tharg, you know, come to some of the shows we're going to be going to. He'll be at Enniskillen. He'll be at Lawless. And elsewhere during the year, LICAF as well, so the Lakes International, which is, I think we'll be definitely talking about later, because Mike, I understand you have a good connection with LICAF.
Yeah, well, this is the official podcast for the Lakes International Comic Art Festival. So we get press passes ourselves, so we tend to sort of wander around the festival and record a lot of the shows that are on there, and a lot of the exhibitions we cover as well. So I was going to say, you're no stranger to LICAF. You've been yourself before, haven't you?
Absolutely. A couple of times. A good pal of mine works in the organisation, although it is a pretty big organisation up there. It's because it's you know, it's a community event, and that's what really draws me to it. It's unique in its aspect, as far as I can see, where you can do a kind of, what would be the equivalent if you were drinking beers in a pub crawl. It's kind of like a cartoon crawl, can't you? You can go to the shopping centre, you can go to the clock tower, you can go to the arts centre, you can go to various pubs around the town where, for example, you might find Charlie Adlard doing a signing, Steve McManus, Tharg playing pool. You find a whole, was it last year or the year before? The Grail for me. I mean, if only I could have met this gentleman to show that just the broad aspect of LICAF. I mean, I'm an enormous Will Eisner fan, and they had that incredible exhibition of his artwork to go and see some of the spirit. And I think it's A Contract with God, which was the first graphic novel of his I bought in about 1983, 84, just to go up and see up close that genuine artwork. I mean, the man himself has fortunately left us some years ago, but you know, just to get up close and personal, and then get involved with the curators who put this together, and they can talk to you the reason behind their choice of work. And yeah, it's just astonishing. I'm really, really impressed. And I don't know its total history. I mean, I've been 3 times. So how long has it been running now, as far as you know, Mike?
Oh, crikey. Is it 5, 6?
Okay. Yes.
Yes, I think so.
And it's amongst fabulous countryside, isn't it? For those who don't know, I mean, it's the northwest.
It is beautiful. I'm based just outside Kendal myself, and it's a great weekend to spend coming down. But like you said, it's not a convention; it's a festival. Yeah. The whole town is used, and venues all the way around, as well as central venues as well. But even the shops get involved with window displays. It is a very different experience, and it's more of a continental kind of comic festival.
Hey, I've seen I got involved in a discussion. Went to see an amazing discussion on Japanese women's manga. There was a shop display which was the Norwegian woolen.
Yes.
How are we explaining it? Basically, it was sculpture, wasn't it? But they were characters. Yes. And it was just amazing. A bit kind of Moominish, if you're trying to visualize that. that was down on one end of the town. I mean, that was just when I went out for a stroll and walked around and went to the town museum where I met Sean Phillips downstairs, and all his work was there. It's just phenomenal. And yeah, a really great way of spending. Now, I was there for just 2 days, but it's longer than that. Is it 3 days?
Well, it's kind of Friday night as well. There's actually creative workshops Friday, and then there's events on the Friday night, which are optional, and then the actual festival is the Saturday and the Sunday fully. So it kind of spans the 3 days, really. But yeah, incredibly relaxed atmosphere to meet some of the best creatives in the business. It's a very different experience. I love conventions. And we have some fantastic ones in the country, but yeah, I think the Lakes has got a very special niche kind of feel to it. But, no, I'm glad you like it, and yeah, hopefully see you attending this year as well.
Fantastic. It'll be nice. It'll be really, really nice to catch up. Yeah, absolutely. So just got a couple more of the people involved I just wanted to say as well. So basically we've got Lou Stringer. I met Lou at LICAF a couple of years ago. Lou was doing a page for us. You'll love the name of this particular strip, Sergeant Shouty of the Moon Force. And the strapline, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm the editor, I'm going to do this. In space, everyone can hear you shout. So basically his play on this is he's looking back fondly at the comics of the 60s and 70s and 80s, where everyone was incredibly urgent and speech bubbles were big and spiky, that kind of, all the actions were completely completely over the top, a little bit camp, and Sergeant Shouty is going to be doing that for us. We've also got a couple of history pieces, basically looking back at Look and Learn. I don't know if for you or the older readers would remember that, but it was a slightly earnest kind of here is some culture, children comic about, and it would be about the invasion of some place or other, a British history, or in this case the Knights Templar. Okay, so we've got a story based on the Knights Templar in the 14th century. That's going to be good. And we've got female characters here. We've got a young lady called Penny Pentagram, who's London's grooviest occult detective, amongst others. And it's just, yeah, I think I pretty much read it now. And a great fan, and a Cumbrian himself, Mal Earle, his new strip called The Prodigal. Okay, and basically Mal is the first person I went to get the whole thing of the 77 together. Okay, and Mal I met with a gentleman by the name of Kermit Leveridge a couple of years ago at LICAF, and they produced Mal had done the artwork for Kermit's poetry, and it was just the most out there kind of Vaughn Bode meets Mobius meets, I don't know, Rothko kind of artwork, just nuts. And Mal's a very down-to-earth guy. But I tell you what, his artwork, if you didn't know him and you saw his artwork, you'd say that guy's got some, hopefully he won't mind me saying he's got some issues, which I'm sure he hasn't, but just incredible stuff. And it really kind of put a spin on me and just thinking, if I can get this and I can match it against that and we can put a bit of the other against it, sometimes you need a concept to go with, and your first piece of work, when you know it works, you start thinking, right, now I've got something to match against other people. So, we are very, 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 very privileged to have some incredible people looking to get involved in issue 2. We've got, I don't know if you know, Leonardo Menco, who is quite an incredible Argentine artist, and some other people out there who are just going to really, really, really open people's eyes to some new stuff out there. And a bit like 2000 AD back in the day, right in the early few episodes, a few issues, which Pat Mills put together, they were buying in Italian and Spanish and South American artists. So we say Bellardinelli, Ortez, yes. And various other. And if you think of Ant Wars, if people know Ant Wars, if people know the style of work that was in Mac 1, obviously Bellardinelli's artwork in Dan Dare, that kind of just so different than the British stuff. So we're going to have a whole gamut really of artwork, and hopefully there'll be more than one or two strips for everybody. They're going to blick through it and go, hey,
it's such an eclectic mix. And that's kind of one of the big draws for me for it, I think.
And on the opposite of that, we've got a new chap. So I mentioned new artists. I just want to mention Drew Marr. Young Drew Marr. I was reading, I said earlier, about Comic Scene Big Annual, which Tony brought out, I think last year, a 200-odd page annual. I got a PDF that I wrote a review for. And amongst this stuff, there's Steve Banner work in there, and there's all sorts of tremendous people's work in there. It's a young chap's artwork, and it just struck me, and I was just like reading it. His strip, and he's 11 years old, and I'm like, would I do that? Would I promote somebody and put someone's work up like that? You know, how would other creators feel about it? What's its place? Well, anyway, Drew has got this character, Dr. I'm going to have to probably come back on this one, but
no, I'm trying to remember myself. I've met the young gentleman. Yeah. Yes, he was at LICAF a couple of years ago.
He was. I mean, his PR and his presence out there. I mean, he's on STV, which is Scott's TV. Yeah. I've seen 2 or 3 things on YouTube. He's met with the editor of the Beano, who raves about him. Ian Kennedy, legend that is Ian Kennedy, says this kid's got it. He's not necessarily going to develop into something. If he wants to continue doing comics, fantastic. He's already got it. Now, his work is obviously showing the fact is he's an 11-year-old lad. I don't want anyone out there to think that, it's going to be, Brian Bolland's standard artwork. And don't get me wrong. But the fact is, he writes his stuff. He colours it. The pages are balanced. The strips flow and the stories are good. And I'm just like, I want to perhaps on my CV one day say, when I'm an old boy, I will say, turn around to my grandkids and say, that Drew Marr? I published some of his work. And that for me will be a delight. Do you know what I mean? It's like sometimes you just sort of think, well, as an editor or as a publisher, what will I leave as my mark? Because I'm not necessarily involved in the writing of these strips or the artwork. I'm there as an editor, But for me, he's the kind of kid I've just gone, I just want to promote him and just see what happens and see what the feedback is. So I would love for anyone who gets the comic anyway, we're going to have an open channel. We want people to feedback to us about all the strips, what they think, honestly. We want people to have an honest conversation with us. So they can do that via Facebook. They can do that via Twitter. Who knows? We might even have a little page cut out that you can ruin your comic with, cutting out a return bit. Oh, we're talking about ruining comics as well. I'm afraid to say, guys, yes, you've all been asking me, is there a badge that comes with it? Yeah, as a freebie. Yeah, the original copy has a badge. I am sellotaping it to the middle of the front cover. Okay, do with it as you will. Yeah, there was another comic that I ruined by having to unattach something from the middle of it. And do you know what? I have fond memories of that, and I still have that comic. And I'm just like, just want to, I don't know, to the fanboys out there, to the real comic nerds. Well, if you're not going to take the badge off, then you how are you going to get it? See, whatever it's called. What's the name of the company that does all the ratings for people's comics and stick it in a plastic slab of?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm going to have to defend you on this because I just love the idea. I love the fact that you can't get an issue 1 of 2000 AD that hasn't been ruined by ripping off the Space Spinner.
Exactly.
Prog 1 was instantly ruinable, which I absolutely love. And I've got a whole list of comics like that. Star Wars issue 1, Marvel, okay. That had something sellotaped on the cover that was ripped off quite quickly. Or something in the middle, I think, that you ripped out as well. No, I absolutely defend this. It's keeping to the tradition of the era.
Issue 2, you hear it here first. I mentioned that we've got a guy who does tattoos.
Oh, yes, yeah.
What if we had him design some stickers that you put on your body?
Adhesive tattoos, fantastic.
Yeah, but kind of, saying issue 2 of a certain comic had some stickers that may have been Biotronic. I don't know. So we're going to also lead with a couple of new strips in issue 2, because a quite famous one from 2000 AD was mentioned in issue 1 but didn't appear in issue 1, and we'd like to hold back. We've got a couple of strips which could be a breakouts with some quite strong characters involved that may or may not be called Joe or have a dreadful surname. No, obviously not. We're not involved in other people's IP. So who knows? Maybe we might even take an advert out in 2000 AD. I don't know. I don't know how they would take it, but it's going to be out there. I've mentioned it to people at 2000 AD. I've had conversations, letters, emails written, just saying this is what we're doing, and it's coming out. And bearing that in mind, I just want to take a moment and again, I want to thank Pat Mills for some very honest conversations that we've had about launching comics. He's launching Space Warp this year. Pat is such a massive, massive influence in my life, and I met him at the 40th anniversary 2000 AD convention. And we're basically in communication about our own comics. Ours is a love letter to a certain period. And Space Warp, I just want to say to people, get out there, support Pat Mills with regards to Space Warp. The artists and the creators involved are getting a fairly fair deal. And he's looking to promote and get an amazing new comic out. And we'll be on our site. We'll be reviewing it and promoting it. And, I just think it's a really exciting time at the moment. I know people can say, oh, they're not selling in the hundreds of thousands and they used to. And, you're only producing a comic for you old grey heads, we joke about our demographic. But, I do look out there and I think we haven't given up. We haven't stopped. People involved are doing different things, games, animation, involving in the industry, but every now and again we pull together and we have these incredible events, these conventions, and you go to, if I may mention some others, you go to Thought Bubble, which I went to this year. I don't know how many people were there, but it was like I was in two enormous warehouses, which were amazing, at the Harrogate Convention Centre, packed with I think about 400 or 500 exhibitors. And I can't guess numbers, but it was like it was a football field full of people. And you're thinking to yourself, this art form means a lot to a lot of people.
Yeah. I think I was the only person in the podcast, actually, that didn't go this year. Yeah. Yes, I mean, there are some, like I said before, there's some fantastic ones around the country. Thought Bubble's obviously one of the big ones as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a really big sense of community when you get so many people who love the comic art form in one place.
Yeah.
It's,
and you struck upon a thing there, community. We've not met Mike, but we can have a good conversation about something that we equally love. And I can meet people virtually, or I want to meet them at conventions just as a fan, and I find that the creators are very approachable, so generous with their time, probably answering the same question for the 173rd time, but as you get to know people, or as you get to introduce to more people, you just realize that generally speaking, they're good folk, involved in this amazing, lovely thing that we all appreciate from when we were kids. And the fact that it's still magic now is a wonderful thing. So, all
absolutely. And I think you've done actually quite a good job of building that community. I've no idea what pointed me to there to begin with, but the 77 Facebook group is a great community as well, and you kind of got me hooked in before I even knew that there was a Kickstarter coming.
Okay, was that with some of the kind of graphics we kept putting in and not really mentioning anything about them?
Well, it was. There was a vague mention, I think, but the actual Facebook group does drag you in. There is an awful lot of people, a lot of knowledgeable people, which I quite like as well, and a lot of absolute newbies that get treated really well, which is quite important when you're joining a new forum or whatever. And it's a good little community page that. Really impressed with it.
Yeah, we've had some feedback from Facebook. They contacted us. They have obviously offices in London and elsewhere, and they have business managers who contact groups on a level who are involved in community rather than the commercial pages, because obviously you can sell things through pages, and we're a community group. We have a page which we might as I say, after the Kickstarter, our 77 page, which is slightly different than a group, but we may well have a commercial thing. But we had some really good feedback in terms that they said, that we perhaps, here we go, guys. Mark Zuckerberg knows what we're doing. Yeah, not he knows what you're doing. Because they monitor these things. We know that they have keyword alerts. Yeah, they have things which post up kind of complaints if you get a certain amount of red marks. They also get positive feedback on things, how they see people share things, whether people's reactions. I guess what they're trying to do themselves is to be seen to be, a good thing as well. people's opinions on Facebook may vary depending on their experience and what they read and their persuasions about kind of, I don't know, fake news or whatever. But as far as my experience goes, I started working with Facebook. I put the group together in 2007. It was really just a very niche thing, literally a dozen of us involved for a very long time. Dave Healy got involved with me about 3 years ago, and Steve Bull, and we've grown it now to just under 2,000 people. We're not, our objective is not to be a large group, it's to be a friendly group. So we do encourage that.
And it is. I can vouch for that. I've seen some really difficult conversations come up, which in any other Facebook group would have been closed threads within about 3 hours. Everything is discussed reasonably. It is. It's really friendly place to hang out.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah,
and I guess
we have big event things, the Golden Squirrels, which
that's exactly what I was about to ask, and Droptober as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a big thing where, obviously, we're encouraged by, again, the internal membership to say, can we celebrate those stalwarts who've been involved? I think, to be honest with you, it came on the back of the incredibly sad news for so many of us I've got a list of creators involved in 2000 AD on the group who unfortunately are no longer with us, and it's a very, very long list. And if you find it on the announcements, it's quite jaw-dropping, really. But this is the fact, is that we've been been reading something that's been around for 42, 43 years now, and some of these, ladies and gentlemen, were not necessarily young when they started, or when the particularly young ones leave us, it's a tragedy, But anyway, the event that I hark to us wanting to mark in perpetuity sort of our feelings and our notions towards those people who we respected was the death of Carlos Esquerra. And it's the award is named after Carlos's fan name, because obviously when he came over to this country, he's a Spaniard with a very thick accent. His name was Carlos Esquerra. I think people, when hearing that, couldn't quite make it out. And I've heard John Wagner tell this story, although he said it wasn't his coining of the name. It was a fan who said this and heard it. They thought he said squirrel, Charlie Squirrel. So we gone with that, and the Golden Squirrels, a similar kind of thing to an Oscar. So it's on a plinth. It's a lovely little golden squirrel, or a certificate if you receive them. And we had a big month-long celebration running up to the date of the Oscars, which is in March, and that was inaugurated created by Dave Healy. And Dave put a tremendous amount of work in, working on various categories. So we had best writers from a certain period of time, best artists, strips, characters. And we're going to continue with that this year. And that was a big involvement thing. I know
it was, and it was it's a long list of awards, isn't it? It's very Oscar-like, in fact, the number of categories. I think I seem to remember seeing a YouTube vid.
Yeah, that's correct, Dave.
The announcements,
I'm going to try and get him to do something probably based around Lawless, where I'm going to get. He doesn't know this, so Dave, if you're listening, you're going to wear a bow tie this time, mate. Okay, I don't care if you're standing at the bar, but you're going to wear a bow tie. You're going to make the announcement, and we'll film it there. And who knows if some of those creators involved are actually at Lawless or at some of the other events. What we try and do is we present them with their certificates, their awards. Cool. And we've had Annie Parkhurst for her time involved as a letterer, Glenn Fabry for his work in the second half of 2000 his history, Dan Cornwell as a new up and coming, and the list goes on. So what we'll be doing this year, I guess, is looking more at this past year, because first one we had the luxury of looking back over 40 odd years and picking and choosing.
I think John Wagner walked away with a cupboard full, didn't he? I seem to remember.
Yeah, it's like, now I think what we'll do is we'll actually name the award for Best Writer the John Wagner Award, but he might not win it, because otherwise there's going to be a lot of people gnashing their teeth saying we ain't going to ever win this, and if you're Dan Abnett or if you're Gordon Rennie or whether they bother or not, but the fact of the matter is, these people in their own rights have been working for plenty of years now, for example, and deserve some recognition as well. So we'll be considering that and moving on with it. So we'll obviously have a chance to do a lifetime award for various people, and it's just a thrilling thing to sort of do a little bit of a thank you and a payback, really, because hey, these people are just legends. I know it's fairly niche, but we'd like to show our appreciation, and I think it's important they get told just what they mean to us, So that's kind of where we're at with that. So that was the Golden Squirrels, and tune into the 77 where we'll be announcing that. I think we've got to let our Kickstarter finish first, okay? So it might be a slightly different time of year this year, but we've been pretty busy with that. I hope people will appreciate, but it's on the cards, and we'll be putting some information soon out there about how people can get involved and the categories that we'll be putting this year. Okay.
Fantastic. If you don't mind, one of the things that we've been doing is we've been ending with some random questions.
Very good.
So I've grabbed a list of podcast host Ian and Nikki. So the first one is, what was the last novel you read?
Okay. Well, funnily enough, I don't know about you, but I'm a rereader. I've got a library, very lucky. I've also married someone who's got a library, and we put our two libraries together. And I'm looking at it now because we're having a redecoration, and I'm going to have to think about these bookshelves. We're going to have to organise them again. And in fact, it's a book by a wonderful British sci-fi writer who I don't think necessarily gets the recognition he should. It's by a gentleman by the name of Brian Aldiss, and it's the start of his Heliconia series. It's called Heliconia Spring.
Spring, yeah.
And it's quite an amazing book because in respects of its attitude towards civilization, obviously, to do with ecology, to do with how society looks at itself. Because what we have is we have a planet where the seasons are different. Not that they have different seasons, but the length of them. I believe each season lasts 500 years. So civilizations rise and fall, and they don't necessarily know about the previous incarnation of the civilization before them. Although, the humans as they are have fear of another race, the Fagors, which are a kind of a shaggy, kind of hairy, bear-like beasts. At some part in the cycle, you find out are literally enslaved. And then in another cycle of the seasons, in another book, you find out the humans are enslaved and their relationship changes. But they have this space station orbiting the planet. And it's a bit like Big Brother. They're sending back, these humans are sending back from this planet a continual live stream. They must have flying cameras or something. This is written in 1983. So you've got to bear in mind there weren't drones and there weren't spy in the skies and things and little cameras everywhere. But the notion is that the human race is developing and watching it. And it's their interaction of those people involved in the space station, the interaction with those on the planet, and those at home on Earth who watch it over quite a long period of time. And as a kid, I think I was, 16, 17 when it came out? It just put a spin on me. I mean, at the same time, I was reading Philip K. Dick, I was reading Silverberg, I was reading all the kind of, Asimov, I was reading all the serious stuff and the crazy stuff. And I just came across this British writer and thought, yeah, it kind of just spoke to me in a kind of not a different tongue, but it was about something so totally different. So that's what I've just finished, Heliconia Spring by Brian Aldiss.
I'm surprised you thought he was underrated. Not that I would know. I kind of grew up in a house that was filled with sci-fi and fantasy books.
Yeah.
Prior to me being interested, I had no choice in the matter.
Go to a bookshop now. Shop now, and I don't think you'll find much of his stuff on the shelves, is kind of what I'm saying. It's
right. It's the weird thing. I've brought most of them with me
to
my current house, where we have a stack of Aldiss books.
Of course, yeah.
Non-stop Hot House. I mean, Hot House was back in the 60s, and that had an ecological twist to it again.
He was definitely on board with the concept of Gaia and those important issues, which here we are, 30 years later, and you're just banging your head against a wall going, well, they've all known about it, the industrialists and stuff, and these people were writing about it. And so, lesson to be learnt still, really. But, there we go. So, I'm a big fan of Brian Aldiss, and happens to be what I've just put down recently. So that was the novel.
Excellent choice. So I'm guessing I know what the next two books you're reading are then, because that was the first of a trilogy, wasn't it?
It was indeed. And I've got exactly summer and winter. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, the next one is, what was the last TV series that you finished watching in full? We're talking box sets, really.
Box sets. Okay, again, I revisit, and I don't have Amazon plugin. I don't have various TV shows, so I'm kind of stuck with the iPlayer. Okay, and potentially what I bought as well. I recently reviewed and finished watching again. What was it? Band of Brothers, because I'm quite a kind of I'm a history buff, and I'm also I'm one of those people who has a kind of empathy with the fact that, you know, my mum's generation lived through something tremendous. You know, not saying tremendous in a good thing, but tremendous in a monumental and clearly important issue, which, you know, the Second World War. And I kind of 20 years ago when I first watched it, I was into the whiz bang and the kind of, you know, the notion of how amazing it was to watch. And obviously they've left us all now. And we have a series where you have the biopics, the vox pops of those people at the beginning of the show. So, you know, Richard Winters and the various other characters who were portrayed in the film or the series, with their actual real life counterparts. You know,
it's wonderful, isn't it? They bookend each episode, don't they?
Yeah. And it never fails to make me feel humble, I got to say. And I think it's good to feel humble sometimes. But that isn't the last one I watched. That was more of kind of, I just wanted to put it out there as saying that's a kind of favourite. So the last TV series I watched live and watched was Dracula.
Oh, right. So that was over the Christmas time. Funnily enough, we've got it recorded. I've only watched the first episode.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of TV. And I loved it. I thought it was great. Some people thought there were issues with it, but I just thought it was fantastically realised. I mean, for anyone who's read, obviously, the book, you kind of go, what was the second episode about? You know, on the boat for the whole of the episode. Yeah, but, kind of looked at it. And is it Gatiss who wrote it? Mark Gatiss went, or adapted it? Went, there's so much missing we could have put in there. Let's have a look at that. And I just really like, and the modern twist, because it went to the 21st century. Did he take 100 years to walk out off the beach of Whitby? I have no idea. But the fact is, I just loved his juxtaposition. I thought the characters were great. I loved the gothic horror and the gore, and there was humor in it. And I just, it really got me. So I'm going to mention something that I really enjoyed. That's the I really enjoyed. So Dracula.
Good choice. What was the last movie you saw in the cinema?
Okay, right. I could mention some others, but I'm going to tell you the last film I saw that was in an amazing cinema. Not the most amazing film I've seen in a cinema, but an amazing cinema. And it was a few years ago now, okay? So I am picking and choosing. I was very, very lucky to be invited to the preview or the premiere of Interstellar, okay? Oh, yeah. And it showed at the BFI IMAX, okay, in London. And a relative of mine used to be a director of projects there, and she was invited, and she got me and my wife some tickets, and we turned up. And it happened to be when it was Sajid Javid was the Secretary for Culture and whatever, and he practically sat next to me, and I don't think he enjoyed it very much. I can tell there's an insight there. Sajid Javid did not like Interstellar, whether it's against his economic and his business and his commercial background, I don't honestly know. And I saw it again on the telly the other day, and it doesn't work on the telly. You have to go and see it on a big screen. And you know, yeah, I know there are some plot points which kind of don't necessarily fit and some bits and pieces, but I really, really, really enjoyed it as a visual feast. So, because it's got so many links with films I love, you know, 2001, you know, it's got the famous
it has actually got very, very much that
music. It's very much, I don't know if you know the very famous film that came out in the late 70s, again, very ecologically centered, with music by Philip Glass called Koyanat Squatsi, which is a Hopi Indian phrase meaning all things which must come to an end. And it's a film ends with basically a spacecraft crashing. It's footage from NASA of a spacecraft which takes off, and it's got a very famous piece of music to it. Anyway, Interstellar has got a pretty mimicky soundtrack, and it pulled me in on various fronts. And it kind of like, for me, it's kind of complete because for me, on a very personal level, it takes me to various other films that I really admire. Okay, I like the elements. It had elements of the right stuff in it as well, which I'm a big fan of. You know, Sam Shepard and that lot about the Gemini crews, who were the original 7 space astronauts from NASA back in the 60s. You know, so I just loved it. I loved it. Matthew McNaughty, I don't know.
Yeah, McConaughey.
Yeah. He mumbles through it a bit, and your Englishman who plays the scientist, Michael Caine, says a lot of frivolous things. But you know, there are people like Philip de Grassi, or whatever his name, the American scientist, who really vouch it and say it's a film that tries to put the science in its place. You know, actually talk about time distortion, and you know, because I'm a nerd. I'll be honest with you, I'm a total nerd. I'm a science.
It's what most people don't like is the science angle from it. And
yeah, well, I loved it. You know,
I'm a maths nerd, so I absolutely loved the
sure. So the maths, and the maths works. I mean, we could have a very boring conversation about maths right now, because I work with people with maths, and for me, maths is quite a purist thing. Physics, we have. I live not very far away from the birthplace of Sir Isaac Newton. Okay. And I get involved in a biannual science fair called Gravity Fields. Hey, the name says it, right? And, you know, to go and geek out and meet mathematicians or scientists or speak to someone in the International Space Station, which we've done through links at a local college. We have a college which is partially run by MIT, okay? So that's at Harlaxton, near us in Lincolnshire. So we have links there with a Russian or an American who happens to be answering the phone that day. You go pay £5 to go to this auditorium, and you can link up with people in the International Space Station. I mean, that is pretty cool. Awesome. You know, those sort of things. I live nearby Leicester. I'm not far from Leicester, which is where the British Space Museum and the British Space Centre is, you know. So I think kind of what we're doing with the 77 as well, kind of hate to drag it back, but I want it to enthuse some kids the way that my comics enthused me back in the day, got me interested in things. And that was because they were well written, well produced, you know, factual. Some of them are factual, like I say, look and learn. And some of them were a little bit more outlandish, but sci-fi. And, you know, I just think that it's important that we keep dreaming, and we believe that we can sort things out. And I want people to use their imagination and be inspired. And it's a bit, perhaps it sounds to people being a little bit over the top, I don't know, but that for me is like the core of what I'm trying to do here. And I think people similarly minded have seen that and buy into it and kind of go, you know, it's kind of fairly genuine what you're trying to do here. We're not just trying to do a cheap reprint of a load of stuff, or, you know, so there we are. You know, those are the things that I've been interested in. And then I guess there's one last question, which you're going to ask me, right?
No, 2 to go.
The comic, right? The comic I'm reading.
Favorite sci-fi film or TV show ever?
Easy. I've got a claim to fame. My mother is a lovely lady. She's still with us, and she's been married a couple of times. And my sister's dad, my mum married the first gentleman, is a name like David Martin. And those amongst you who are Doctor Who fans will know his link with another gentleman called Bob Baker. And Bob's still alive, works with Aardman Animation, does a lot of the writing for Aardmans. And Bob and Dave Martin were involved in a lot of the 70s scripts, screenplays for Doctor Who. So worked together on the K9, invention of K9, a very famous character. If you don't know, check it out. And a few of the characters from what I consider to be, for me, the golden period. So Doctor Who and the new series as well.
Okay. That's my next question.
Great. I think it's great. And the fact is that they keep chucking new doctors at us doesn't matter, because it's all about timey-wimey. And, you know, and if you believe that someone can get into a box and that box is bigger on the inside and it can take you places, then I think there's a whole lot of other things that you can encapsulate in your belief system as well. So, you know, Doctor Who for me.
I cheated with that one. They were supposed to be random, but I knew I was going to get that story out of you see. So
fair enough.
I was hoping you were going to say Doctor Who. So.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I could chuck in sort of slightly niche ones, but you know, wouldn't necessarily. But at the time, I loved Blake 7. You know, I loved some sort of slightly sort of more offbeat sort of sci-fi series or what have you. But yeah, Doctor Who, and I was I was just one of those people who was so pleased that I had kids in 2005 who were old enough to start watching Doctor Who when it came back. So my boys, Sam and Jack, hi guys, are now 22 and 21. But in 2005, they would have been, let me see now, 7 and 8 or 6, 6, 7 or 8 each of them. And we sat down and we watched Doctor Who, and I was thrilled that they liked it as well when Christopher Eccleston came back with Rose Tyler. And that episode is obviously a nod to some characters that I call him my stepdad wrote, which are the Autons, who are the plastic shop mannequin figures who who their hands fall down and they expose a kind of firing thing and they shoot people. And I knew nothing about the series, and I literally sat there and I just cried my eyes out afterwards, going, "Wow, they remembered," you know. So it's a very living, breathing thing for me, and I've got fond memories as a kid. Very privileged, I guess, being invited to various filming, and lots of props were around us all the time, and such like, and that sort of stuff's beyond, behind me now. But I can talk to some people, and if I wish to, I can mention it, and it's a nice thing to do. But it's been going for a long time. A lot of people are involved, and there must be lots of people out there with claims to fame to Doctor Who, because it means, and it's been involved with so many people, that it's that there's a whole gamut of people out there who have been involved, and it's fun to meet up times with them. And no, I don't have any stuff you can buy off me if anyone's listening. I haven't got any. Don't get in touch about it. It's not really worth it, and none of my family have got it either, so don't worry about it. So there we go.
Okay, and the last one, I'm always going to end on this one. What was the last comic you read?
Okay, the last comic I read was sent to me. I backed it as a Kickstarter. It's called The Sentinel, and The Sentinel is written by two of our guys, Alan Holloway, and drawn by Ed Doyle, and it's hilarious, and it's a small format. I believe it's mimicking or homaging. Am I right? Was it Star Blazer from the early 80s, or Star Slayer? Oh dear, I'm gonna get my people telling me that I should know that. But basically, it's a homage to an old British science fiction comic in that format, with characters in it who were similar to that. And I was delighted to send them my money on a Kickstarter, and that succeeded literally in a few hours in reaching its target. And those gentlemen are involved in the 77. So I'm really pleased to say that the last comic I have bought and read, which I read yesterday, is something I've got a link to. So and hopefully may long that continue, that I'm meeting with and hoping working with more and more people who are looking to put their work out and maybe get it published with us. So if you're interested and you want to pitch, or you want a trial, we have scripts if you want to try artwork, or you can send us some script ideas, and the details are on our Facebook group and our Twitter account, and you can contact us there.
Awesome. You heard it here first, folks. There's your chance. Well, seriously, thank you very much for joining us for this. It's been a pleasure talking. I'm really looking forward to the actual end of the Kickstarter to see just how far you get, because you've already exceeded your initial funding goals. So I hope that it keeps going for you. And like I said, if you want to find it, just go into Kickstarter, just type in The77 or one word, and it'll bring it up there. Or I think you mentioned it actually comes in the most popular as well, if you click on that in the comics section.
So it's going to be up for what now? So if you listen to this on the 15th of February or afterwards, if you want to get involved and back us, you've got to do it before midnight on the 1st of February. If you're interested after that date, or you just haven't got the cash at the moment, please don't worry. As I said, we're doing a tour.
1st of March, wouldn't it be? Sorry.
Correct. Yeah, the 1st of March. Yeah. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. This will go out on the 15th of Feb. So yeah.
Yeah, and so basically, it's going to be fairly well distributed as I say, through Get My Comics. And if you're lucky enough to get to Portsmouth or Enniskillen or Lawless or MacPow or LICAF or Thought Bubble during the year, those are the ones I think I've committed to. Hopefully I will get my application accepted by all of those. Then you can pick up copies there, or through the Facebook group. We'll sort something out for you. And if comics aren't your thing, but you're interested in, T-shirts and other things, I'm sure we can sort something out for you. But there we go.
That's awesome. Thanks a lot, Ben. Cheers.
Hey, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks ever so much, Mike. I do appreciate the opportunity to have a chat with you.
Brilliant. Cheers.
How do? Welcome to Breakdowns, the comic art section of the podcast. I'm Pete Taylor. I'm a small press comics creator and illustrator. Online I trade as This Man, This Pete. This episode I'm talking to an innovative cartoonist, eclectic comics creator and Satan's librarian, Adam Falp. Hey Adam.
Hello sir, how you doing?
Yeah, really well. You?
Yeah, I'm all right, mate. Thanks for that very kind intro. I will be going as I will be sort of leading off as a Satan's librarian now, if anyone asks.
Yeah, that's your new your profile. Well, we last saw each other at True Believers. So it's only a couple of weekends ago now, isn't it? Now, did you have a good show?
Yeah, it was pretty good, man. I always love True Believers. I always say, if anyone asks, I always say it's a little bit like a comic summit, because you can turn up on the Friday and just sort of chill out with each other if you're there, and then you have the day on the Saturday, and then the Saturday after the show you can go back into the bar again. But it's the closest we get to like all sort of getting away for a weekend together.
Yeah, no, it's true, isn't it? They're the best bits. I think it's a bit of a shame with me and Mark. We lived just close enough that we drove there and back on the day. But definitely my favourite ones are when you're far enough away that you can just stay over. It makes a world of difference to the weekend. It was the first one for us, actually. I really enjoyed it.
I did it. I did it last year and sort of drove down super early in the morning and sort of hated that part. And then I found out that everyone had a lovely evening on the Friday, and I was like, I won't be doing that again next year. So yeah, I stayed there, and the hotel's pretty nice as well, swanky.
Yeah, it's a good excuse.
Yeah, shoot off, pretend you're at a panel, and just go head to the spa.
Right, now I've read that Batman the Animated Series was the start of your love of comics. So what was the path from that to where you are now?
I think when I like stuff, I really get into stuff. So I think I was watching Batman the Animated Series used to be on a Saturday morning, 8 o'clock. I had to get up early because I used to get up at 9, but I had to make an exception on this, these particular days. So I get up, watch that, and then somehow I don't really sort of know, but I found out that there was a comic shop. I think I used to be honest, I think I used to grab like the Panini reprints that were in sort of newsagents and corner shops. So I grabbed them, and then maybe somehow found out that they were sort of reprints. And there was quite a local shop, a comic shop. This would have been in the 90s, so it would have been doing fairly well, I'm guessing. And then my mum used to take me there as a special occasion, because she used to hate it because she could either sit me in front of the TV and sort of take up an hour of my time, or she could spend £3 and have me entertained for only 10 minutes. So she used to hate taking me there, but I made sort of once a month I think it probably would have been a Wednesday, although I had no sort of concept of New Comic Book Day back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just made her take me there, and I kept heading around the corner every couple of weeks for the Panini reprints. And I think that was probably the first time I was reading comics properly. And then you do the thing where you stop for ages, and I got into other stuff. And then you do the cliche thing where you come back to it after all these years.
So was it like everything you spent, that was, initially, or where all your pocket money went, was it?
Yeah, I think so.
Were you mainly... Was it a DC thing because of Batman, or did you, once you started going to the comic shop, did it just like blow your mind that there was so many other titles out there?
Yeah, I think it was. Batman was really like the sort of where my heart belonged to Batman. I remember being 2 and like being like super into Batman, and I think it sort of transitioned a little bit into sort of Spider-Man because he was a bit sort of like funnier and friendlier. And then when I used to go to the comic shops, I used to just buy like weird stuff. Like I had like a chunky, like I look back now because I found some of the old books that I would have bought back then in like an old cupboard at my mum's house. And I had it was a pretty lengthy run of Catwoman.
Right.
For some reason, I decided to pick those up. And Archie Sonic comics, I obviously was really into. But I think I used to just buy anything that I was sort of watching on TV.
Yeah.
So obviously, at some point, I was watching the Sonic cartoons, and then headed to the comic shop, and then grabbed the Sonic comics, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think that, when they used to put that sort of like little sticker on the front, sort of as seen on TV, I think that was, there was a real connection between recognizing something that you'd seen, whether it was the Spider-Man movies or the Hulk TV show or cartoons especially, that once you made that connection, it just made it all, it's kind of a better way of, not like a reversal, but the comics made the TV shows better, whereas I think nowadays people are kind of happier with the movies, and they don't seem to make the trip to the comic shop as much.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not sure if that's still sort of thing now. Like, you still see My Little Pony comics in the comic shop and stuff, but I'm not sure if the link's there anymore between watching it and on a Saturday morning, or now I'd probably be watching it on YouTube and then heading to the comic shop to buy, like almost being like all encompassing, because I used to, as I say, like Batman, I wanted everything Batman, like my bedroom had to be Batman, I had to read Batman stuff, I had to wear like clothes with Batman on, but I don't know if that sort of translates now.
No. So what was the point where you realised sort of how they were made, and that you could do that yourself as well?
Yeah, I don't know. It was probably recently, probably when I got back into comics, I only sort of realised that people probably actually drew these, because I'm not sure how I thought that they were made. It definitely wasn't. I didn't sit there and think someone's drawing this. I just think I guess I felt like they were just sort of generated somehow, perhaps on like a computer or something. But like for someone's hand to make these great drawings, I was, obviously didn't occur to me whatsoever. So I reckon, when I got back into comics, there's a very in my local shop. There was a small sort of independent section, sort of shelf, just like one shelf right at the back. Very like low down, and they've got they had, because I don't think it's there anymore, but they had probably about 3 or 4 self-published books on that shelf, and that was probably the first time. And it's no slight on them, but obviously they probably weren't as good looking as the DC stuff. They were a little bit sort of amateurish, so if you want to say that, and that was sort of like. Okay, someone's actually drawn this, but then someone really amazing must have drawn all of these ones on this wall here. So that was like the first time I sort of ever realised that people sort of made their own stuff. And I guess I just sort of wanted to give it a go as well, is the lead on to that.
Yeah, I suppose it can appear as like a stepping stone sometimes, can't it? You can see one as being the first step towards getting to the other wall.
Yeah, it's quite interesting there when you sort of put it like that. But yeah, I think it's a very I think wanting to make comics for me anyway was it was a very natural sort of, if I'm reading them, why wouldn't I want to make my own ones?
Yeah.
I sort of, and then sort of seeing the ones down on that little shelf, you know, they didn't have to be a somebody to get them in this shop. So might as well chance my arm and see what's.
Well, I have to say, I mean, and I did mention it to you before we started the interview, but I picked up your book, Satan's Library, from you at True Believers. And I think a lot of what we were just talking about really comes across in this book. Mm. And I don't want to spoil it for people. So I'll be describing it in quite a nebulous fashion because people really do need to pick it up to find out for themselves. But it's a really clever and surprising book, and it comes across as a real love letter to comics to me. I think some of the stuff we were just talking about, the fact that it involves some, you know, elements of comics, so ads, it involves comic shops themselves, creators, you know, the actual action of buying, but I think it's an amazing piece of work that really has kind of encapsulated a lot of those first visits and those kind of discoveries. I think that's the bit, and it really does come across. I can't really recommend it enough. So if there are any listeners that haven't picked it up yet, they should definitely dash over to your store. It's handmade as well, isn't it? It's not actually. I mean, there's a process of construction there that you've put it together yourself, but you're obviously printing some of the pages and then assembling it yourself, are you?
Yeah. I mean, basically, I couldn't find it if.
Yeah. No. Without giving anything away, it's going to be expensive, isn't it?
I couldn't find a printer that wanted to do that for me. So I've had to, so I had to, basically buy the cover, buy two separate things, have two separate things printed and sent to me that way. And then there was, some gluing, some sticking, some stapling.
It's proper old school sort of, you know, zine construction though, isn't it? It's like back in the day, that's how you put your comics together. It was a photocopier and a stapler, wasn't it? And there's an element of that there. So it encapsulates lots of different forms of comic creation. You touch on, you know, lots of elements within it. I think it's fantastic. So as a cartoonist, I mean, you're in full control over your work. So you've got full control over the writing and the art in your stories. So what is the starting point? Do you script first, or do you break down your pages? Is it a bit of both?
I don't think I've ever. So I've done I think I did about seven books last year. I don't think one of them was ever made the same as the last one.
Right.
So I think I've gone down the path of trying to write a full script. I don't really like that sort of that drags me down, especially if I've got to sit. And then obviously the next part is to sort of. I end up sort of, I guess, just having sort of page breakdowns, like one sentence sort of things. Yeah. And then, but I guess for this one was. I end up doing a lot of just sort of thumbnailing now and just seeing where it goes. And I just sort of thumbnail on one piece of paper and then maybe have like a document where I'm just literally typing the words that are coming out of the mouths of people. Yeah. And then sort of meshing the two together. I think Satan's Library is probably a little bit more like that. So I think normally I decide on a page count. Yeah. And then I have perhaps... half a page of A4 of the story, and then maybe I'll block that out into say 16, and then I'll thumbnail that. So yeah, the writing part, it kind of I mean, for me, the best part, and I'm guessing for you as well, is the drawing bit. That's the bit what we want to be doing, and the writing. The writing can be fun, but it's still sort of a necessary evil. So I've kind of got the writing part to be as much of a drawing part as possible.
It can sometimes. I was talking to Gustavo Vargas, I think that was in the previous episode, and he was talking of a similar process, in that he's, I think a lot of cartoonists will think visually first, so the visuals come, and he's actually almost or formulating the dialogue as you're drawing, so you're becoming familiar with characters and the sort of body language that you're drawing them with or giving them can sometimes start to give you more of a clue to the character as you do the drawings, kind of thing. I mean, I find scripting is a real chore, because I write for myself, but I also write a story for Mark Hughes in Silverbeard.
Yeah.
And I just literally finished the script for him for this second issue story, and I had to do it like just an hour, 2 hours max a day. I couldn't sit and do the whole thing.
Yeah,
it was just a bit frustrating just typing. It was like I had to go off and do something, a bit more visual, and I ended up sort of bopping around and, and building it up over days rather than just, if it was a page, if it was a drawing, I could sit there and happily spend all day doing it. But because it was a script, it was a lot more of a chore.
Yes, when my last few books, I've sort of lettered my own stuff, but when I used to have a letterer, or when I was working with a letterer, like I used to have to, like the night before I was sending him the pages to letter, that was when I'd actually have to like write a script, and it must look so bad because I was trying to dress it up as like, I work full script and all sort of this sort of stuff, but that was the only time I'd ever basically write a script so he knew what was going on. Right.
So you letter write as the last kind of thing you do in the process. That's.
Yeah, I do. I kind of do it. I've got a bit of a fear that if I was to do something else, so if I was to say I was colouring, if I was to letter something and then colour, if I was to colour it and then colour the letter, I'd be worried like the distance between the coloring's too long, so then possibly. It might look different, if you know what I mean. So like the colours I've done on the first part of the book might look different because there's been like intervals of lettering in between.
Yeah.
So I do try and sort of write. I'm in this sort of ink phase. So let's ink all these pages like now. Okay, right, that's all done. They look sort of somewhat the same. Right, now let's colour it all, and hopefully I won't forget what colour palette I'm using in between. Right, that's all coloured.
Yeah, no, you make a good point. It is, and once you get into the process, it's much easier to keep, your momentum and to keep track of exactly, what you're doing. Sometimes when I have been forced off one part of a job, sometimes colouring, I've come back and I've forgotten what brush you were using, what kind of sizes, your palette, forgetting what colour certain characters are and stuff. Yeah, it definitely throws you, definitely.
Because you're forever sort of getting better as well, like by page 20, you're so much better. You've leveled up if you want than page 2. Whether that's sort of penciling or lettering or anything like that, you've had like almost like a whole book to get better. So if I did sort of complete pages from penciling to lettering on page 1, by the time I got to page 24, that penciling's going to make page 1 look like rubbish. So I'd have to go back and sort that out, and then it'd be a forever ending loop, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it does happen sometimes. You get the hang of a character sometimes a little too late, or too late, but you've suddenly, oh right, he looks like this, or they look like this, so that you do have to sort of go back and tweak them sometimes at the beginning, don't you? Because they look completely different, or they're just not quite. You've sussed it. You've got the little secret element that makes them how you want to be. And you see, you're working traditionally with your artwork. It's pen and ink.
Yeah, I mean, I pencil now on an iPad in Procreate just because it's a bit easier to, I was talking about this with Mr. Dan Butcher at Troobs, where we would, if you draw a head too small on a piece of paper and you pencil it by hand, you obviously got to rub it out. And I don't know about you, but I have a tendency just to go back over those same lines that I just rubbed out for some reason. It's like undescribable. Like, I know it's not right, but my hand just goes back over those same rubbed out lines. But in Procreate, you can just sort of draw a line around it and then make it bigger or smaller, and that's all. So for ease and sort of quickness, I tend to pencil on an iPad. Then I'll print that out. I'll blow it up, print it out, and then Lightbox ink on Bristol board, scan that back to the iPad for colours, into Photoshop to do some Photoshop sort of trickery pokery, and then that's sort of the end of that. And then normally if I'm lettering, I'll letter that by hand and scan that in as well. I just think that Procreate is like great for the sort of everything like that. Like if I wanted to, have a go at being a fine artist 10 years ago, I'd have to get all the paints, I'd have to get all the brushes, I'd have to get like an easel. But now I can just, whip out, Procreate, change the brush, and sort of flex my Michelangelo muscles.
Get all Renaissance on its ass.
Yeah.
So what's the worst bit about drawing comics?
The worst bit, I guess, trying to remember that I'm enjoying it. I think so. I think sometimes we get like sort of caught up in like either like self-imposed deadlines, or I need to get this done, or I wanted that done by today, and then you end up sort of not rushing, but there's probably like a bit of stress there, and you sort of forget to enjoy it.
Yeah, totally.
So maybe that's, and then I'll knock out a page because I wanted it done by the end of the day, and then it's been so like quick, and I powered through it. I drank a lot of coffee, and then I'll sit there at the end. I thought, right, I'm happy with that page, but did I enjoy making that page? Yeah. And I did, I think, but I'm not sure. Like when I was doing it, I don't think I was going, this is great, which is weird. A bit that confuses me the most, like I'm still yet to not be surprised by it, is the way that when I finish inking and sort of colouring, like that should, in my mind, that should be the book done. But then for some reason 3 months later you're still doing end pages and all that sort of thing. How has this happened? I finished inking this 2 months ago. I'm still not ready to go to the printers. I don't understand what I've been doing.
Well, your latest project, you're kickstarting right now. This should be going out on 15th of Feb. So I think the Kickstarter will still be running then. But you're running a Kickstarter with Tony Esmond called Atomic Hercules.
The big man.
Yeah. I think it's obligatory that we have to mention him on every episode of the podcast, or indeed any comics podcast, it seems nowadays. Tip of the hat. So how did the book come about?
How did it come about? I was flirting with the idea of having my own small press comic unit, much in the style of sort of late 70s Marvel period sort of stuff. Like, they were putting out really like strange things, like 2001, stuff like that. I don't know why they were putting it out. So I was intrigued that even though I thought that I knew quite a fair few of those titles, that I've never seen before. So I was really like into this idea that, you know, I could make some old sort of 70s style comics in that vein, which could have well been out then. And it kind of drifted or sort of away from that. Me and Tony live quite close to each other, so we've become sort of friendly. So I asked him to write something, or like a Thor Ragnarok style book, which sort of changed. I believe that Tony had the idea to make, you know, a nice Silver Age Hercules book. He sort of accidentally imposed some of his views of today, of sort of ultra-violent, super sexual themes, and then just had that running through the book, and then that landed on my inbox in the form of a script, if you could call it that.
You were off and running.
He was trying to find a way that he could shock me some more. I was trying to find a way that I could, you know, impress him with my crazy sort of comic pages. We ended up sending them back and forth, just sort of challenging each other in the end to see which one could be more outrageous. So the campaign is fully funded. We're at about 120% now. And so we've just announced some stretch goals. So the first one is like a bit of an audio sort of talk through between me and Tony. And then the second one is a 2-pager that we're also doing, is about decided to write and make Atomic Hercules.
So how can people find the Kickstarter?
You can head over to Kickstarter for Hercules, or find me on Twitter, and I feel like I'm always banging on about it. So
brilliant. Thanks, mate. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, mate. See you soon.
Thanks for listening. Apologies for the sound problems. As you heard, the gremlins got the better of us towards the end of the call. If you didn't catch the details, search Atomic Hercules on Kickstarter, or find Adam on Twitter and Instagram at Adam Falp, ADAMFALP, and his website is adamfalp.com. Cheers.
Hello and welcome to Small Pressed, the comic review section of the Comic Art Festival podcast. I am Tom Stewart, and I'm here today to talk to you about a comic that I actually mentioned last time that was on Kickstarter and is still on Kickstarter just now. I'll read you a little bit of the synopsis to get started. The year 2184. Earth is no more than a brown and grey desert of mutants, robot armies, and a single drunken demigod named Hercules. Yes, I am talking about the absolute romp that is Atomic Hercules by Adam Falp and Tony Esmond. This is going to be difficult to speak about because, as the Americans would say, this comic is a hard R. It's definitely got the old X rating on it. This comic is honestly like if Jack Kirby had drawn a 22nd century Toxic Avenger. It has got the total B-movie vibe, but with Adam's style, it's got a very sort of Kirby look about it. It's funny because right from the off, the front cover is something to behold. You know, it's this giant hulking Hercules looking figure. He's got the gladiator skirt on, you know, breaking chains and breaking away from something. But on closer inspection, he's wearing what looks like fluffy handcuffs and breaking away from a bedpost. So straight from the bat, if you look at it just on a base level, you'd think it's like this big superhero thing, but this is just so much more. The visuals behind this are just stunning. I'm a big fan of Adam's style. It's very sort of graffiti-esque meets old Bronze Age art. He works very well with sort of harsh black lines and very vibrant, bright, almost electric colours. It's really lovely. I'm a big fan of Adam's art style. But this book is just out and out comedy. Like, it's just brilliant. It's absolutely action packed throughout, but it is just hilarious. Like I say, it's a very explicit book throughout. Completely balls to the walls insanity from the absolute get-go. What I've experienced from reading this, though, is that this comes from an all-time comic fan. Both Adam and Tony, but you can tell that Tony has such an in-depth knowledge of comics, and he has an absolute love for them as well, along with the kind of 70s schlock. I mean, there's advertisements throughout here that show that as well, but it's all in that old Bronze Age sort of looking style. You know, you've got your feel of your undergrounds on the go here. You know, the era of comics with an X. You've got a feel of early to mid-days Marvel. There is some really all-out, put Saw to shame violence throughout it. This comic is definitely not for the faint of heart. I've had such a laugh reading it, though. It's really refreshing to know that there's people out there that'll just have fun when making comics. Some of the dialogue that comes out of the folks that aren't Hercules are just so surreal and straight-faced and straight-laced that it just makes a character like Hercules stand out. He does anyway, because he's a hulking great figure with a massive axe and a gun, but there are all these creatures and everything in amongst it as well, and yet he still manages to stick out in the crowd and really dominate this book. It's just a really, really fun romp. I seriously suggest that people get onto this and get onto Kickstarter to check it out. At the time of recording, there's only 11 days to go. They've already smashed their target, but you do not want to miss out on this at all. If you want to see Tony and Adam really pull down the trousers on superhero comics, then you really need to get onto Atomic Hercules. I love how Adam gets such a sense of scale when he's drawing characters. It's amazing. The only thing I would like to see Adam do a bit more of is backgrounds, because when he does actually just do subtle little backgrounds within his work, it really shows that he's got a love for the artwork in general. He really turns a comic panel into a work of art a lot of the time. I would really love to see him do a lot more backgrounds. He did a comic called Living in Sin, and that had a lot going on in the backgrounds, and you can get a kind of taster within that in Atomic Hercules as well. But like I say, with his vibrancy and colours, it just makes everything stand out above the rest. Every line in this is kind of a short and sharp to the point as well. They don't really dwell on a lot of panels for a long time. They just keep the story moving, keep it rolling. You know, there's no messing about. But there is a lot in here for a proper comics fan. For a proper old school comics fan, a die-hard through and through comics fan, get on this series. This is issue 1, and this is just going to get better and better, I think. Definitely get onto Kickstarter and get yourself a copy of Atomic Hercules. Also, make sure and follow Adam and Tony across on Twitter. So Adam is across on Twitter at Adam Falp, ADAMFALP, and Tony is across at Professor Riptide at EZOHYEZ. And that is it for the review section. I just want to point out some Kickstarters that are on the go at the minute. Sarah Millman is kickstarting her NPCT Volume 1. At the time of recording, there's 13 days to go. Sarah has been delivering on Kickstarters for a while now, and NPCT just continues to be a great comic. It looks incredible. There's great characters, great mythology throughout it. Definitely well worth your time. So that's going on Kickstarter just now. NPCT Volume 1 by Sarah Millman. Also, nip across to goodcomics.co.uk. Ben Mitchell is doing his Storm Clouds Collected for the Australian bushfire relief. It comes with like a Twin Peaks style cover, and it's a proper special edition. Ben Mitchell's Storm Clouds is a great collection, a really good sort of punk rock, sort of post-hardcore story that's got mystery and murder and cops and everything going on in it. It's amazing. But the special limited edition dust jacket that's signed by the author is going across at Good Comics just now. And every time a copy is bought from Good Comics, $10 goes to the Red Cross Disaster Relief and $10 goes to Wires. So yeah, check it out, goodcomics.co.uk. Just check out most things that are on Good Comics, to be honest. They're an absolutely great publisher and they do a lot of good work, but this in particular is one to keep an eye out for. And lastly, something that was pointed out to me recently, so I've not actually had a chance to get into it properly. I've read the pages that are on the page itself. There is a comic that is being funded through Unbound by Tom Woodman and Rupert Smizzen. But Future is a full-colour science fiction graphic novel about love, hope and the end of the earth. It looks fantastic. I really like the look of the art. Murray Milniusiak, the last astronaut, is dying. So is the earth. In a last-ditch attempt to save them both, Murray and her wife Kay are shot forward through time to find a cure and rewrite the future. But crash landing in a barren future, they find themselves with no help, no ship, and no way home. It just sounded great. I was really taken by it, and it's being aimed as a single volume book in 5 chapters, totaling around 135 pages. I mean, I'm right up for a decent graphic novel, definitely. But that's been pointed my way just now, so keep an eye out for that. Unbound, and it's Future by Tom and Rupert. And that is it for Small Press this time. If you have any Kickstarters that you want mentioned, or any comics that you want me to take a look at all, or you want mentioned that it's on sale at the minute, or anything at all, then get in touch with me at Uramix across on Twitter, at URAMYX. Or alternatively, you can find me on That Comic Smell, at That Comic Smell, across on Twitter and Instagram. And that has been Small Pressed. Until next time, bye for now.
What was that?
9.
Good.
I said a word.
Okay. Right, let's talk about the festival.
Do it.
Tickets are up now.
Early bird tickets.
Early bird. Tweet, tweet, tweety, tweety, tweety.
What? That's the way it kept going, wasn't it?
It was beautiful.
It was beautiful, was it?
It was. So you can buy now tickets for essentially everything.
Do it. Come and join us. I'm sure it won't be raining.
So you've got the opening night, Friday the 9th of October.
Yes.
Which I can't say much about, mainly because I don't know. But it's going to be a balloon debate-styled event.
Balloon? Oh, I know what that is.
Go on.
So everyone's pretending in a hot air balloon. You throw people out to make sure you get higher.
What?
Yeah, that's what it is, isn't it? Is that not it?
Probably not. It's probably more to do with a word balloon in a comic.
No, it's everyone's in the thing and it's sinking and everyone has to debate as to whether they stay in the balloon or not.
Well, I'm sure then it's probably going to be debating about a particular comic or something then.
I don't know, but that's a balloon debate. Not, is it the balloon? Oh, how boring are you? We're going to sit here with our PowerPoint production.
Well, we'll wait and see, won't we now?
Yeah, it's totally mine.
We'll wait and see.
Totally mine.
You can get tickets for the Friday Comics Up Close event, which is for the more educated of us.
Not you then, is it, really?
I'm definitely not going to be there. Obviously, the Windows Trail is back as well, just to make a point.
Yes.
We have ideas. I have ideas.
No, you, again, have had ideas. And now, I mean, that's why I have a box that's black and paint up my walls.
You can get the weekend pass. Early bird special price.
Do it.
Saturday and Sunday. I'm going to check the price out now for you.
Do it, because you can't tell them it's like £3.
£30 for the full weekend.
That's all right.
£20 for NUS. Damn students.
Oh, that's Joe. He gets it free anyway. But that would, yes, if it's college or anything, come up and get your NUS.
That's very true.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, just for the Saturday loans, 22. So you might as well come.
Yeah,
grab that early bird pass.
Yeah, bring up your lanyards.
No.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
That was amazing. So they're all up now on the website. Get them while you can. I'm not sure how long the early bird prices are up there for.
We are only in February.
Yes.
But yes, it might only be a few weeks. Might even be a day. Oh my God.
You've also got until the 27th of March if you want to apply for a Clock Tower table.
Do it!
That's still open.
Because we want to come and see you.
And
hug you.
Oh, is that it?
Buy all your comics.
Buy all your comics.
And if you've got a badge, I'll buy that too.
Well, yeah, you buy more badges than anything.
I do.
You have problems.
I do.
I think that's it.
Is that it?
That's all the news we've got.
Is that all we got? Is it because Mike and Pete have been chatting on again?
Yeah, they've been just
all the time.
So next episode, we've got Alex Packnadell.
Yes.
Will be on, who should have been on this episode, but we messed up and had problems.
Yes.
But he's on
all of that
next episode. I'd like to say any questions, however, we're interviewing him in a day or two's time, so there's no point.
Well, they need to get the questions in today.
Today, which is the 15th of February.
Yes.
Oh, there's something we need to talk about.
What?
Where did I take you last night?
Oh my God, you took me out for Valentine's Day. Thank you so much.
And where? What did I
We went to the Brewery's Art... Went to the Brewery Art Centre to see, because it's the Japanese Film Foundation stuff is coming round at the moment, and we went to see My Love Story.
My Love Story!
Which is such a sweet film. It was lovely. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Based on the anime, I want to say.
I thought it was a manga.
Could be a manga. It's based on one of... It could be both of them.
It could be both, to be fair.
Yeah. It's two friends, isn't it? So you got the guy that's like so popular that all the girls want to be with.
Right.
And then you've got his best friend who they've known each other since they're babbies, basically. And he's rather bigger.
He's like a Hulk, a white Hulk, essentially.
Yeah, he is. He's like a bit gruff, isn't he? He's a bit scary more than anything, I think. So the girls don't like
But he's
him.
not trying to be.
No, he's like the sweetest, kindest man in the world. And then this girl who he rescues from a pervert, basically. And then the girl likes him, but he thinks that she likes his friend and is trying to get them together because he's a nice person, but she just wants to go out with him. And it's like the whole like misunderstandings and funny little bits that go along with that. And it was lovely.
They obviously tried to get the stylized effect from the manga-anime in it. Sometimes it felt a bit odd.
It was funny when he was rescuing the child that had fallen in a river and he just swam along like a fish. Yeah, it was brilliant.
It's weird. I mean, it's not my style, but I went and...
You did, and because it was at the brewery in the warehouse.
Which is small, which is where for anyone who's been, the
Whack-on bit goes in. So they show it in there, and you get to sit on the sofa with your feet up, so it's always lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my experience last night.
Yeah, it was great. It was fantastic. I'm going back in a couple of weeks, 6 weeks' time, to go and see, what's it called?
I can't help you there.
Oh, I want to say The Sea Rises, The Tide Rises. The
film. A Japanese film.
The Wave Ride?
It's a Japanese film.
It's an anime. So me and my best mate are going to see that because I don't think you'd want to go and sit through another one.
I think I've had enough. I've had enough for one.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Some animation news today as well is that Luke Hamill is taking on the role of Skeletor for He-Man.
You're very excited, aren't you?
He's perfect. You know, you can just imagine that Joker sound effect. That does fit.
He'll be able to do the Skeletor laugh.
No, can't wait for that series. So looking forward to it. And there's so much jumping onto Netflix at the minute as well. It's
there's supposed to be a live action He-Man,
supposedly, or Master of the Universe.
Masters of the Universe,
right?
Yeah. So it could just be the universe of, without any He-Man.
So we'll see. So yeah, very excited. Excellent. Right, thank you very much for listening. We'll be back on the 1st of March when the weather should hopefully start improving.
Yeah, right.
Until then, keep an eye on our Twitters. You might see stuff about our...
There's already a box with the cat almost in it on there already. Just a cardboard box cut up. I'll put a black one on there now, shall I?
Brilliant. Black one. Brilliant. Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Find out more about the festival at comicartfestival.com. Find out more about the show and how to contact us at comicartpodcast.uk. Find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. Music composed by Pop Noir.
This podcast is part of Britpod Scene, an independent network of uniquely British podcasts that's always growing. Check out BritpodScene.com or BritpodScene on Twitter to find out more.